Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Mama Genius Hub podcast. I am so excited for Jeanine to come up here shortly because some of you I know out there have those teenage kids and you're ready to go like this with your hair because they see even my glasses are coming off because that was me this morning as we were talking about beforehand. And so she's here to give us some of those new perspective changes on how can we have those trusting relationships with our kids, how we can talk to them a little bit better and really enjoy the teenage years rather than feel like you have to get through them. We'll be back in just a, we'll get started in just a moment. Welcome to Mama Genius Hub podcast, where we support moms with big dreams from entrepreneurship to personal aspirations. I'm your host, Michelle Kaiser, and I'm here to help you unlock your potential in all areas of life. Join us as we explore strategies for thriving in motherhood while pursuing the dreams, the key to actually unlocking your genius. Subscribe now and embark on a journey to realize your fullest potential. Again, we're back with Jeanine Mouchawar, who is a parenting coach who helps moms and dads be their teenage go-to person. I just love the sound of that, your go-to person. Her parenting mastery program teaches new strategies to stop battling and create a calm, peaceful home so children can thrive. Her approach allows parents to stop feeling at a loss and to start knowing what to do to feel close again. Parents reduce their frustrations and worries and help their children be the best versions of themselves, aka I call their genius. And so welcome to the stage, Jeanine. We're so excited to have you today.
Thanks for having me, Michelle. Excited to be here.
I just saw like you talk about kids. I'm like, the more parenting teenage coaches I can get on here, the better, because I know, and I think it was yesterday that I was with a different but we were talking about how to like rename, like we're always like the terrible twos, or just a phrasing that we put on some of these ages. And I know teenagers have that as well. And I think as we start to change that perspective to all of that and to redefine, my goal is that we have more joy and enjoyment with our teenagers and enjoy them while they're with us still. They're about to leave the house.
Right. And we put in all that work. We want to just continue to enjoy being a parent and having a good relationship with them.
And so I'm just so excited you're here. But I'm just going to dive right in because my first question always is, what is your why behind wanting to help parents with teenagers?
Yeah, great question. I love to start with that. I think, my why in becoming a parenting coach is that I just felt like kind of what you were saying earlier is just really struggling when my kids hit the high school years. When they were younger, I parented intuitively, and yeah, things weren't always easy, as parenting never is. But I felt like the way I was parenting, I felt like I was helping my kids be the best version of themselves and thrive and happy, like we were talking about. But when we hit the high school years, I just felt like what I was doing was not being as effective as I wanted it to be. So, like, for example, my daughter was overachieving straight A student, so she consequently put a lot of pressure on herself and was overwhelmed and had some anxiety and stress. And what I noticed is how I was communicating with her about that, like, wasn't really getting rid of it the way I was hoping that I could. Or like my middle child, he was diagnosed with ADD and a learning disability at a young age. And so when we hit the high school years, he started like disconnecting from the family and his grades were plummeting. And then he ended up getting in with a group of friends that weren't a great influence and smoking pot. And, I just felt like, whoa, whatever I was doing seemed to further the disconnection and create a more exaggerated problem. And similarly with my youngest one, he was, in high school through COVID, and that has its own share of problems. And just the video gaming and isolating in your room, I remember thinking like, why isn't he more productive? It seems like he's so lazy. And the conversations I was having wasn't motivating him to make better choices. And so I guess all that to say, like, I was sitting there thinking like, I am a really smart, well-educated woman. Like, what is the problem here? Why can't I be the effective parent I want to be? And why are there like no resources out there that I felt like were really working for me? So I went and did a deep dive and found information in cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, conscious parenting, and learned all these new strategies and different ways to communicate with with my teenagers that really just transformed my relationship. And I was left feeling like, wait a minute. Everyone should have access to this information, not just me. And so that's why I went and got my life coaching certification and why I coach parents now, preteens, teens, young adults, moms, and dads, and help them have that relationship that we want, that we talked about.
I love that so much. Is start with a need that you had, filling that void, and really think. And those of you listening out there right now, moms, I really want you to feel that right now. Most of this entrepreneurship or these things come from a need that we're feeling in ourselves, and how do we get to the other side of that? I mean, that was for me with this, is feeling that loneliness in motherhood and wanting to come through the other side and have a different conversation with the moms around me than the complaint fest. I see, Jeanine, you're doing the same thing with, like, how do we have a better conversation with our
Well, I think we lost Michelle. It shows that I'm still live with everyone, but I think maybe Michelle had an internet issue, unfortunately. So we can give her a minute to hopefully hop back in the studio and join us here. Um, yeah. Anyway, what can I share with you today? I think maybe if I'm still live, um, one of the things that I think a lot of people struggle with, and what Michelle was talking to me about before we came on live, is when you feel like you're walking on eggshells with your teenager. And oh, there she is.
the wind just blew and I don't know what's going on, but I've never had that happen before.
I was like, well, I think we lost Michelle. So, yeah.
What did I miss? And now I want to know.
Well, I didn't realize you were gone for a little, but then I started to just kind of share a little bit about our conversation this morning, but you came back on, so we can go back to your agenda.
Well, no, let's finish up what you were saying. I'm open to that. I want to
Oh,
make sure we
okay. I
finish
was
out
just
that
saying,
piece. So.
like, that we were talking about how it's not uncommon for us to feel like we're walking on eggshells with our teenagers, and for them to be very emotionally reactive and perhaps get really angry or yell or scream, and we don't understand why, and how common it is for us to react the same way because it doesn't feel good to get yelled at or screamed at, and especially when we don't know why, and how, we can sometimes get into this cycle of where you're on this roller coaster of yelling at each other and it goes nowhere fast, and you're left as a parent like feeling like, gosh, this is so hard, and I don't want to show up being somebody who yells, and this feels really awful.
That's so true. And I mean, we were talking about right before we came on, because we want to be the moms that, like, really have that conversation and that deep calm. And so, but also comes to, like, what happens when that does happen, because we are all human, right? How do we respond? And I'm not sure what you shared about our conversation before, but, like, walking on eggshells with my son this morning was, now that it happened, and my mama bear came out, and I was like protecting the middle one who he was yelling at, and then I start yelling back, and you feel that. What do you do now? And so for me, what I did was got support, and my husband and I just kind of sat down together with him in the middle. We had him come sit with him and just hugging him, telling him we love him, and, like, let's talk this through. Let's figure out where we're going to go from here. And knowing that even if we do have behaviors that aren't likable, he always likes to say, you, like, I think sometimes a lot of times it comes out like, you hate me, or you hate this, or like, and I'm like, it's not a you. It's like, I don't like that behavior that you just did. You, I love. And that's not changing no matter what. Like, I don't care what you did. Like, you, I still love. That behavior, well, that was frustrating. That was annoying. That's what I yelled at, not you.
You know, that's such a golden nugget you just shared with the audience that I know that wasn't in my awareness before I came to some of these strategies and tools, which is really trying to slow yourself down and separate your teenager's behavior from who they are inside. And so, something I love to share with my clients is to imagine that it's you and your child on one side of the bench, and the problem is on the complete other side. And it's you and your teenager working as a team to try to solve that problem that's on the other side of the bench together.
I
And
love that.
so really seeing like the struggle. So for example, with what happened with your son this morning, it's like seeing the struggle that, hey, he hasn't learned yet strategies to manage his anger, his frustration, and he doesn't have coping strategies yet or skills to tolerate that anger and frustration. And that's an opportunity as a parent to teach that and to guide. And, I love how, listen, we're going to all lose it, right? Like our teenagers trigger us, and that's just a fact. But I love how, yeah, exactly, poking the bear. But I love how you use the repair tool, like another strategy you shared with your listeners, just to know. I love the power of going back and repairing the situation because like I was saying, we're all going to lose it at one time or another. We're human, we're not robots. But to know that, oh my God, I didn't damage the relationship and I have a strategy to go back and repair that and move forward is really like settling as a parent and feels grounding and calm as a parent. And it's very healing to your child because they realize, like, okay, look at mom taking responsibility for losing it and not shaming me for getting enraged with her, and instead looking at this as, hey, we're both struggling here, let's solve this together. And you've just demonstrated that so beautifully.
Well, thank you. We turn on the interview to you right now. But it's so true about the format of this, all of how we start to take accountability for the things, and we want our kids to do the same. But again, as I say on this, it always comes back to us being that role model for our kids, because that's what they're going to see. And we'll come back in just a moment.
Attention mompreneurs. Do you feel like you're constantly juggling the responsibilities without a moment to yourself? It's time to pause and reflect with our Mama Genius quiz. Tailored for busy mamas like you, this quiz will help you identify what's blocking your path and inspire you to harness your unique strengths. Transform how you manage life and business, find your rhythm, and ignite your joy. Visit mamageniushub.com today to discover your Mama Genius. And that's mamageniushub.com.
Now we're back, and I really want to dive straight into some of your strategies to having that deeper conversation, especially, I mean, you can, as you start to, a lot of you in this situation, you start to see your kids make that change, and they're really learning how to navigate that. And honestly, we have to remind ourselves that it is a navigation, that it is about their brain is really actually detaching from their heads, and the things that, and as adults, even though we're triggered, how do we, like, that's why this is so important that we fill our cups first. But now what happens when we're talking about, so you gave some strategies to the repair, to those things. I know your focus also is on that listening. And so what are some of the ways that you suggest that we do that?
What are the ways I suggest we listen more deeply?
Or any way to have that deeper relationship with them, however you want to.
Yeah. I think the first step is kind of understanding maybe why we feel we don't have it. And the way I talk about it is I feel like most of us are working from this outdated parenting approach that's based on rules, rewards, punishments. And in essence, we see something they're doing and we want it to stop. So just like the example you mentioned this morning, right? Your son's losing his temper on your daughter, and you want it to stop. And so what happens is we tend to respond to them and communicate with them, telling them what they should do or they need to do, or giving our advice to stop what they're doing that's worrying us, or to fix what they're doing or change what they're doing. And what I know to be true is that when our kids hit the teenage years, this approach tends to shut down the conversation, right? That's why we hear, like, get out of my room or something like that. That it leaves them feeling like we don't really understand what's going on inside of them. And that's why you hear things like, you don't get it, mom, you don't understand. And then what?
Never heard that one.
Yeah, exactly. And then when 1 and 2 happens, right, when the conversation gets shut down and they're feeling like that you don't understand what's really going on inside of them, we get more worried, more scared, more angry. We tend to tighten the reins, right? The rules come out, the punishments, the punitive consequences come out, and then it's just you're on that merry-go-round, right? They disconnect more, they're more angry, and you completely miss solving the problem at hand. And so instead of that approach, what I like to help parents do is really try to focus on that connection piece before they're focused on the cooperation piece of getting your child to stop or change what they're doing. And the reason we need to do this is because, when they were young, that connection was there. They were very agreeable. They needed us. And so, yeah, they listened to what we told them what they should do. And they loved our advice and wisdom. But now that they're teenagers, what they need from us is to kind of flip that. They want to come up with their own wisdom, right? And now it's our turn to, yes, we're still guiding and teaching and influencing, but from a place that's more listening and helping them come up with their solutions. So, the 3 pillars that I like to focus on with this is, the first is we got to get them talking and really opening up about what's really going on. Like for your son this morning, like, what was he thinking? What was he feeling that caused him to explode? Right. So we want to focus on trying to get them talking about the real issue. And that starts with us having some coping strategies to settle our own big emotions, right? Our worry, our fears, our frustrations before we start a conversation.
Right.
And then piggybacking on that, we want to start noticing when we're having more of a lecture than a conversation, which I find is very, very common and just comes from a place of, like, we have good intentions, but when they're teenagers, they don't want to be lectured to. Right. So that's kind of the second thing we want to focus on. And then we want to, like, really help them see that we do understand, right? So we got to switch it where we're really deeply listening to what's going on for them, and we're really trying to come from a place of curiosity and really looking for those hidden gems of, wait, what's going on in their mind? What's the story they're telling themselves? And what sort of feelings are going on inside of them? Because that's what's causing the behavior that we want to stop or we want to change, right? If you want them to stop getting enraged for no reason, we need to uncover what the underlying issues are, what they're thinking and what they're feeling. And I think maybe you froze again, so I'm just going to continue on. I think after we uncover those nuggets, it's so important to show our child that we really understand what they're going through and how they're feeling, right? So that thing we talked about earlier, Michelle, about really trying to get on their side and validating those big feelings they're having, when you get to the high school years. our kids are overwhelmed and they feel a lot of pressure, or maybe they had an experience at school and they're feeling humiliated or embarrassed. And so we want to slow ourselves down and really listen for what's going on inside of them. I just kept talking.
I'm so glad. I missed your third one though, so we understand. But we'll come back in just a moment. We'll give it a little breather, and we'll talk about for moms out there how to if now my all my systems are all messed up because but with motherhood we roll with it and we support each other. So we'll be right back in just a moment. And this is about talking to somebody about the support.
Do you ever feel like your own dreams are fading on you as you focus and keep everything together for your family, or been buried under laundry and school runs and endless to-do lists? They're so deep, you don't even know what they are anymore. The Mama Genius Hub is here to help you uncover that part of you again. Maybe you felt that pull to start a passion project, return to a hobby you once loved, or pursue a career that lights you up, but you're so caught in everyone else's needs that you keep slipping through the cracks. In just 15 minutes a day, our mini courses will help you reconnect with those dreams while finding a new rhythm in motherhood's beautiful, messy life. And best of all, you'll be doing it with a community of moms who truly understand the juggle and the joy. The Mama Genius Hub is a community who've been there and are here to support and inspire each other every step of the way. It's time to rediscover your spark, live in your genius, and inspire your kids by showing them how to follow their own passions. Join the Mama Genius Hub today and start creating space for you again without guilt and doing it solo.
Come to www.connectingmamas.com for more details.
And we're back. So really want to get into that support and that idea. So when I left off, again, I've never been kicked out of an interview twice now, but thank you, Jeanine, for rolling with it and being such a great superstar guest. So when I left off, we were talking about doing it with a place of curiosity and really listening to our teenagers. I mean, we kind of covered a little bit when we talked about my situation about that you even used a different word that I haven't heard before. I forgot what you said, but it was the repair of it all. So, because things are going to happen. So what are some ways now, how do we make that a stronger connection, or what are some of the things that we need to do as parents to make that, to move forward with that?
Yeah. So when I think you got booted out of our room, I was talking about getting curious and really listening to like what our children are thinking, like what stories, what narratives are going through their mind and how they're feeling inside, and then to validate those feelings so they feel like nothing's wrong with them. And like they feel like, hey, what I'm going through, if I'm feeling overwhelmed or pressured or humiliated or embarrassed, there's nothing wrong with me for feeling that way. That's completely normal given the situation that's going on. And so that's part of being on their side and being on their team. You'll start hearing less, Mom, you don't get it, you don't understand, when you slow down and really listen for how they're feeling and validate those feelings. And then the last strategy I was offering is just, try to catch yourself when you're telling them what they should do or need to do. And instead tell yourself like, okay, wait, no, they don't want to hear that, but I do still want to help them. And so I want you guys to think about, how can I help my kids help themselves? And so instead, like when you catch yourself saying, hey, you should do this, or you need to do this, or offering your advice, just a great strategy is like, just say to yourself, wait, how can I ask a question in this situation versus telling them what to do? Right. So for example, like if we take your poor son, we're using him for all of our examples today, but instead of saying, hey, stop yelling, you shouldn't yell at your sister like that, right? You could turn it into a question like, hey, you seem really angry. What's going on? Right. And as we continue the conversation, you can ask like, what might you do differently next time you feel that rage building up in your body? versus telling him like, well, you need to do this and you should do this and right, all this sorts of things. So
Yeah.
it's kind of what I was talking about earlier, where we're flipping our roles. We're still giving our guidance and our wisdom, because most of us has a lot of wisdom to offer, but it just is a matter of learning to shift our communication of that wisdom into formulating questions and guiding our kids towards better choices.
I love that so much. And I love how you're putting that together. I think also one of the things I want to throw in there to add to that is also sometimes those conversations can't happen in the midst of it. And so taking a pause. And so like I did, and being on the couch and we were having some of those questions and going, what can we do differently? And knowing when is a good time to do that. And then all of a sudden I realized, actually, as we were sitting on the couch, I realized what time it was. Like, okay, he's going to be about to, if he doesn't start moving, because, it's time for school now. So it's like, then the shift, like, okay, time's over. Like, I'll continue this with him. But like being cognizant of those things as you're moving forward with your teenage kids and keeping, but letting them navigate it a little bit more. And I think that's what this was about. And it's funny that you said that, because I was already like, what am I going to take away from him? What am I going to do? I'm like, no, stop. like that is our instinct, our natural reaction to do those things. That's also what we've been taught, what happened to us. And we're like, well, we turned out fine. The question is, can we do things a little bit differently? Mm-hmm. Can we start to nurture them and they're going to be out of our houses soon. And that's what I think. I had a conversation of just like with my daughter once, of just like some of the things that was happening. I'm like, I'm not with you all the time. Like, it's now time for you to start making some of these decisions for yourself. And you decide if this is a good choice or not, because when you're off with your friends, I'm not there to be. Right now, you can ask for my guidance and suggestions on these things, but soon we're not going to. And I think since I've been kicked out so many times, we're about to run out of time. But I do want to ask you our last question. So I think you're going to have a great answer for us. What is a common misconception about motherhood you think holds many adults back truly stepping into their genius?
Michelle, I think the biggest misconception, and I hope your audience is really listening to this and takes it to heart, is that we should know how to be an effective parent. Because just take a moment and think about, like, okay, wait, this is the most important job that we do. And we were never educated on how to do it well. We're just supposed to trial by fire, figure it out. Most of us just end up parenting the way we were parented, and we're in a different culture. And our kids have different needs than we did. And honestly, that sort of parenting method was parenting through power, exerting our power and control over our children. And there's better ways. And so I think the biggest misconception is, I think, like, at least this is how I felt, and I hear this from my clients all the time, is they feel like they should know how to be the perfect parent, right? Or the best parent. And I just feel like, guys, there's no way. How can you do that? If you're an attorney or, you're a doctor, like, you go through years and years of education to be knowledgeable about your profession. And so why do you think that all of a sudden you can be really great at this without really taking some time and learning new strategies that you were never taught?
Mm-hmm. I love that so much. And I think you've already answered the second half of the question, which is shifting that perspective. And it's just in terms of really finding that niche of how to educate, if I'm not mistaken, is what you're leading to. So I'll let you finish that up.
Yeah, no, exactly. Right. Is looking for resources that offer new approaches and new strategies. Like, don't do what I did and like keep doing the same thing over and over again, thinking I'm going to get a different result, and I don't, right? I think Albert Einstein said that's like the definition of insanity or something like that, but I think we all do that. So when you don't have the relationship you want with your kids and you feel like maybe they're disconnecting from you, go seek new strategies and new ways, and try some new things. There isn't one right way, but if you're trying things that aren't working, try something different. And I know sometimes that feels scary. and overwhelming. But if it's not working, you might as well try something different and new. And
I love that
that's
so
what I
much.
love helping clients with.
That's honestly why I want to create the Mama Genius Hub. It's to have that place for people to experiment and to try new strategies and to get them. And so I love that so much. I want everyone to know how they can get a hold of you and what gift you have for them.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Michelle. The best place to get information about me is just going to my website, JanineMouchawar.com. I'm also on Instagram at Jeanine.theparentingcoach and Facebook. I have a Facebook group, Parenting Teens, How to Not Lose Your Shit. We have some fun in there.
I love the title.
Yeah. And then, I just wanted to offer your audience, there's 2 links to resources that I think can be really helpful to your audience. One is if you just want something quick, down and dirty, just a quick way to connect to your teen, download the 50 activities to connect with your teenager. Pick one, try it, see if that forms a connection. If not, pick another one and just sort of observe, like, wow, was I able to have a conversation with my teen that was like more productive and more of what I want than maybe I did yesterday? And then if you want to do a deeper dive into how to be your teen's go-to person and get more information about some of the things I was sharing today, I offered, there's a free class in there, and there's a link for that too on how to be your teenager's go-to person.
And so those links should be in the chat right now if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. And I'm going to put Jeanine backstage for a minute. We're going to go away through the 5 takeaways. So the parts that I got to see, despite the power out or the wind was blowing and I don't know what happened, but we roll with it. So our 5 takeaways today is, first of all, number 1 is to separate the behavior from who they are. So again, I love how she pictured the bench, right? It's you and your child together with that problem on the other side, and you two are the problem solvers together and eliminating those two from each other. And then number 2 is that repair tool, that opportunity to teach, and to teach again through example, taking that responsibility. Like that is our job as parents, to show how we can take responsibility, because you know what? We will get our buttons pushed too. I have a perfect example of that today. I think that's why we had this conversation, why it was supposed to happen today. But that's the way it goes. And we need to still push through that to show them other ways to do it. And we need to learn other ways, as Jeanine was also pointing out. And then number 3 takeaway is understanding, I'm trying to read my writing that was writing, that we don't have if we don't feel like we have that deep that deep relationship we want, how do we do that? And a lot of times that's with, we first see the steps of the conversation shutting down and them saying you don't understand. And that disconnect right there is what we're first seeing, but then how do we fix or change that, which leads us into takeaway number 4, which is really focusing on that connection piece. We need to flip that script of now we're not the ones that they want our advice from. They're now trying to figure out what is their next move. And so it's more about opening up that conversation. And almost in a way, the way I kind of want to summarize it is like being their coach rather than helping them guide through their own decision process making, because they are going to be on their own soon. They are going to be the ones out there having to make their own decisions. They're going to be out with their friends, and you're not there to hold their hand through it. So we need to start teaching them those skills to have those conversations ahead, which leads us into number 5, which is nothing is wrong with you. That when they're feeling that way, it's to start asking those questions more often, such as myself this morning, asking my son, where is that anger coming from, or what's wrong? And you may not want to do that specific situation if they're still angry, but then to go to that repair moment and come back and make that conversation happen and not walk away from the conversations. That's how we keep having those connections. I want to bring Jeanine back up for her final takeaway.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you gave us so many nuggets in such a quick thing. I think listening to you, I'm listening to what your takeaways are. I think the one other thing that I thought of that I would add to that is just to realize that we want to have in our back pocket tools and strategies for in the moment and tools and strategies for outside of the moment. And so to your point, and your son so sweeping a guinea pig, right? But to your point, it's like if emotions are firing on all fronts for ourselves and our kids, right? In that moment, you're just trying to calm the situation down and really save your teaching moments, your influencing, your guiding, your motivating moments for when emotions aren't all fired up. And so maybe, think about when you have an extra few minutes, what are my in the moment strategies and outside the moment strategies? And, that's what I love, helping my clients have those tools in their back pocket.
I'm writing that down right now. I just never phrased it like that, but I love that because we always talk about the toolbox, but and that's actually one of the things is in the hub, we're going to want to have those reset moments too. Is like, how do we reset when we are fired up? How do we take that back and take charge of it? And that's really what it comes down to, is really about learning those skills in a proactive way, so that when it does come time to use them, you're not necessarily reacting, but really able to hone in on those skills. And we can't always do everything in the moment, and we aren't perfect. So on that note, just remember that we're doing motherhood together. You are doing the best job that you can do and making the best relationship you can have with your child. And that's what this is about, is just us supporting each other. So thank you, Jeanine, so much for coming on today. And thank you for taking over when everything went awry. But you know what? It was just meant to be the way it was supposed to be.
No, well, thank you for having me, Michelle. And I just love that, you are connecting moms together and that you have this supportive community, because I think we could all use some of that.
I just want us to all come together and really have that community and support. And it's not really about advice. It's more about you honing in onto what you need from this moment. On that note, we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you for joining us in today's episode of the Mama Genius Hub podcast. If you found value in our conversation, please share this episode with another mama who might benefit. Sharing helps us build a supportive community and reach out to more mamas like you. After all, it's more fun when we do motherhood together. Until next time, stay motivated and continue to pursue your dreams as you shine in your genius.